Hello, my name is Jason Leahy, Executive Director of the Illinois Principals Association. Thank you for joining me for this IPA talk. With me, I've got Dr. Jason Feig with Khan Academy here to talk with me a little bit about the good work that they've got going on. Jason, thanks for spending a little time here with me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
So, Jason, you work with Khan now, and I'd definitely like to get into that, but I think it's important for people to note that you are a former school leader. I mean, you still really are, but, not in an official capacity like you were, but, you've worked in the K-12 setting and all of that, and are now working with Khan, and we'll definitely want to get into your work there. And for us here in Illinois, Khan's important for a lot of reasons. One is educators can just use it as a tool. You're going to talk through some nice things that you've got going on now, but with Illinois being an SAT state, we know that Khan can be particularly helpful where that is concerned. But before diving in, just kind of curious about your background a little bit and your experience as a school leader, and then also kind of what drew you into working with Khan Academy.
Yeah. Thanks, Jason. So I started my career as an elementary and middle school teacher, and I spent 5 years in the classroom, and then a superintendent had a brilliant idea to make me a school administrator at 27.
Yeah.
I say that. And so I thought that was a great idea. And so I feel fortunate in a lot of ways, but I started as an assistant principal. And then in year two, I was an elementary school principal. And so it was an incredibly humbling experience early on.
Right.
And then I had an opportunity to move from the elementary principalship to a middle school, grade 6-8, about 1,600 students. And then I had an opportunity.
That's a lot of middle school kids.
There were a lot of middle school students. Yeah. And actually one of my favorite stops. I mean, of elementary, middle, and high school, I enjoyed middle school the most. There was never certainly a dull moment there.
Oh, kidding.
And then I had an opportunity to be a 6-12 principal. With combined middle and high school. And then I was an assistant principal at a large high school as well, all in Michigan. And then I spent it was about 6 years with College Board, and I started in Michigan when Michigan moved to the SAT for all juniors. And so I traveled throughout Michigan, talking to a lot of schools, just helping them figure out the SAT, and also official SAT practice and the partnership at the time with Khan Academy. And through that journey at College Board, I had an opportunity to meet several team members from Khan Academy, and I've been with the Khan Academy team for a year. And when they approached me and had a conversation, it was specifically to do work in the Midwest. And since I live in Michigan, I also worked in Indiana on the state contract with College Board. It was a perfect fit. So I've been with Khan Academy. It's almost a year, and it's just been a tremendous experience and huge learning curve. But I'm really passionate about the work that Khan Academy is doing. And anytime I have a conversation, I always think about framing it from the perspective of, if I were in a high school today, or if I was a district leader today, how would I talk about the resource or think about using Khan Academy? Because one of the things, anytime I talk with a school, I'm really clear on is to say, Khan Academy is a great resource, but it's a resource. It's a supplemental resource. It doesn't take the place of high quality instruction. And that's usually where we start the conversation when I talk to school districts about how they might be using or want to use Khan Academy as a supplement.
Well, and it's interesting. And I knew, after you reached out through my good friend counterpart up in Michigan, Wendy Zadeb, who runs the Michigan Association of Secondary School Principals. And we had an opportunity to have a Zoom conversation as a result of that. And you started kind of laying out the variety of opportunities and resources that Khan has available. I knew we needed to have this conversation and have this IPA talk on this topic because, as an educator and even as a parent, I kind of have this really probably myopic view of what Khan Academy is and what it can do. So like when my kids are coming in and they're like, hey, I need help with X on algebra or geometry or whatever, and, some classes, I might know a little bit. I can probably solve a monomial equation and that kind of thing. But eventually it's like, we just tell our kids, get on Khan Academy.
Yeah.
I taught chemistry and physics, and my kids would start bringing me some of this chemistry stuff that I have not done in 20 years. Like,
Yeah.
go to con and take a look and then come back and then we'll talk about it and see. So that obviously is a huge benefit in that way, but there's a lot more to it than that. And we know we've learned about that some here in Illinois about with the SAT and helping with SAT prep, and kids can take that SAT practice test, find through that, hey, here are some con courses that might be helpful to help you bump up your skills in these content areas, but you've got even a lot more going on with that. So I know you've got a presentation there that I'd invite for you to share, and just kind of walk us through some of the stuff that you have going on there at Con, Jason, that would be helpful for us.
Sure. And, Jason, your point about knowing Con, and this is one of the things when I started working for Khan Academy, I've learned a great deal even in the last year, being on the Khan Academy team. And we oftentimes talk to school districts or school leaders, and there are many people that are familiar with Khan Academy, and either they've experienced Khan Academy themselves, or
they've heard Sal give a talk on a podcast, right, or TED or whatever, right?
Yeah, and right. And but you're right. There's some more to the story, and I want to just share a little bit today. I'll sort of walk through the deck. And I always like to start with, our overarching mission is to provide a free world-class education to anyone, anywhere. So when you talk about Khan Academy, I like to bucket the conversation to start. We actually have a few buckets of work that we focus on. We have Khan Kids, which is a pre-K2 resource. It's app-based. And so you may have heard about Khan Academy, but maybe not about Khan Academy Kids. And I know we're talking to secondary principals. But
we're talking to them all, K-12
okay,
in
great,
Illinois.
excellent.
So we're good. Yep. You
okay.
Bet.
So pre-K2 resource, app-based math and ELA. The second area down below there are what we call our mastery enabled courses. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that coming up. But those are grade 3-12 courses in both math and science, and some other courses. And then we have official digital SAT prep, which prior to today's deck, it said official SAT practice, because now that we're talking about, I'm actually talking about going into next year and the move from paper pencil to digital. We're talking about official digital SAT prep. So I'll talk a little bit about that. And then we do have another partnership with NWA called Map Accelerator. Mm-hmm. So that kind of frames, the buckets of work that we do. Also at the beginning of the conversations, we use the term mastery learning often at Khan Academy, and having been in, as a classroom teacher and as a school administrator, the term mastery learning oftentimes is talked about in a little bit different ways. But when we talk about mastery learning, it's just simply about allowing students to continue to work on a concept or skill until they get it. Mm-hmm. And so when I talk about the mastery enabled courses coming up, they're built in that way. And I think that's one of the things that helps us stand out as a resource, is that students have the option, and teachers have the option by using the resource, for students not only to work on grade level skills, but students who need to sharpen below grade level skills, or for students that need to advance. So that's what I'm referring to when we talk about mastery learning. Here are all the mastery enabled courses. And I want to just highlight a couple sections here, because as I'm working with schools across the Midwest, a lot of the conversations that I engage with school districts on is either about Algebra 1. Algebra 1 always is sort of part of the conversation about how to improve Algebra 1. And then the second one is around SAT prep. And because in like Illinois and other states in the Midwest deliver the SAT across the board, it makes total sense why, that would be a topic of conversation. But in the upper left-hand corner of the screen, I had referenced this a moment ago, we have grade 3-12 courses, and those are all mastery enabled. I'm going to talk a little bit, one step further about mastery enabled and how to track progress coming up on one of my screenshots. But the other thing I wanted to highlight here that run parallel to the grade level are the getting ready for grade level courses. So we know that, and every school administrator knows this and every teacher knows this, a group of students walks in the class and they're all at different levels, and for lots of reasons. We also know what's happened the last couple of years with students and learning. And so the getting ready for courses are designed to boost those prerequisite skills. So they could be used in conjunction with the core class. They could be used as a standalone, and they're full-length courses. They don't have to be used A to Z, but they could be used A to Z. So I always like to highlight the core math getting ready for, and then the prerequisite classes. And then you can see a number of the other mastery enabled courses. We have middle and high school science courses, some advanced placement, and then of course the official digital SAT prep. So that kind of gives you like a really broad view of the courses that you can access right now, that teachers can access, and that administrators can access right now.
Gosh, when I'm thinking about, I put my teacher hat back on, Jason, it just makes me think about how terrific this would have been to leverage. Because even though you teach a content area or whatever, you may not have deep mastery of every topic. And if you had Khan there to use as, like in a flipped classroom experience, kids, your assignment tonight, going to go home, you're going to watch this video, and then we're going to come back together and we're going to work through these concepts, these problems, whatever that might be. We're going to have discussions around these things. I mean, that just what a powerful tool. Yeah,
and it reminds me, Jason, of something that I talk to schools about, of an experience that I had as a high school administrator when a day or two before school starts, you have to change the master schedule. And you have to have somebody in a course maybe that they're not overly thrilled about teaching, or they haven't. Mm-hmm. And while this is, we view this as a student-facing resource in many ways, I do think there's a huge value add to your point of a new teacher, a long-term sub, a teacher that maybe was placed in the course at the last minute because they had the correct certification. Yep. That it could work in that way as well to help to stay a sort of a step ahead. Of the class. So yeah, that's a really good point. And I think that there's a lot of creative uses for it. Well, we're talking about in some places using Rosetta Stone where they're not able to find foreign language teachers. So I think what you're talking about there could sure make a lot of sense if you're in that predicament. For sure. So just one more point on the mastery learning, and I highlighted this, but the ability to work on, I talked about skill gaps or unfinished learning, while at the same time, the ability of students to accelerate. And we know we've got those students across the board in every classroom. The other bullet point under student, the retry and learn from mistakes, if you're familiar with the platform, and for any school administrator maybe that hasn't or isn't familiar, that's considering using the platform, I encourage you over to khanacademy.org and just create an account and play around and really kind of just walk through a class, because what you'll see is students can retry and learn from mistakes. Again, back to mastery learning. And so there are hints, and there's the ability for students to watch videos if they're not sure. I always love this last bullet because there's a reality to this. When a student goes into the platform and they're working in a course, and let's say a teacher's using the one of the courses strategically, the student can view and track their progress. And that would be the gold standard, right? That the teacher's delivering high quality instruction. Maybe they're using Khan Academy as a supplement, but what the student can do would be to look by skill level. And I'll show a screenshot coming up of this by skill level and how they're progressing. And then on the teacher side, same concept, they can track progress. And so they can monitor how students are performing. They can create individual learning experiences. And then the reports are hugely valuable in conjunction with any other data that they might be utilizing in the classroom, just to make better sense of how students are performing. I'm planning on going home tonight now, Jason, and asking my boys to get busy leveraging that. I don't know how, I'm guessing I'm going to get a few strange looks, but I love that concept there. And talk about taking true ownership of your learning experience. Yeah, absolutely. And because you gave me this opportunity, if you want me to talk to them, feel free to send my phone number. I'd be glad to give them. They might listen to you more than me. That's for sure. Who knows? Yeah. Then when we talk about multi-tiered systems of support, just when we talk tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, the platform's perfectly built for that. When we talk about tier 1, those master enabled courses are there. The tier 2 for getting ready for courses, and then our full content library for tier 3 instruction. So we've been talking to schools quite a bit about that as well, when they're thinking about how might you use the platform in that way. I did want to share just a quick visual of what teachers say in case some school administrators haven't been in to take a look from the teacher perspective. But this is a sample of an Algebra 1 class that a teacher built. So they would have went into khanacademy.org. They built a class, and then they added students in. And this is an example of, it's a getting ready for algebra course. But you can see the skill levels on the left-hand side and towards the middle. And those purple highlighted areas, those are all indications of mastery levels. And when we talk mastery levels, and you can see it just above, in the middle of the screen to the right, where it says attempted to mastered. And so those highlighted areas are groups of students that are in that particular, that are at that particular level on a specific skill. And so they work all the way to mastered. And when we say mastery, and when you see students on a skill at mastery level, what that means is that students can demonstrate an understanding of that skill on a mixed skill practice. So it's not an isolated skill where they repeat the skill over and over and over, because that's proficient. Mastery is saying, okay, now can you take those skills when they're mixed together and still show understanding? So that's how our system is built. And then this is one step below the previous screen. So if I was looking at this as an Algebra 1 teacher and I was testing solutions to equations, or you could pick any of the skills, and I wanted to see what level students were at, I can do that with a simple click. So I think about the power of this around as a supplement. And I get really passionate about this particular conversation, because when I think back, if I were in a high school today, or middle school, or even in elementary, number one, I know there are a ton of resources floating out there, some great resources. One of the things that's nice about Khan Academy, it is fairly intuitive and easy to navigate. And and to get to this level of information is pretty powerful, because you can compare this now to any summative or in some of the formative assessments, or even other assessment data that the district might be looking at, and say, does this, sort of add up? Does this make sense based on our other data?
Well, the power, well, go ahead and finish your thought, and then go ahead.
The only other thing I was going to reference is when you look at a skill. So let's say I checked into identifying equations, expression, and inequalities. From here, I can say, okay, I see all those students in attempted, familiar, and proficient. And you'll see a blue box on the right-hand side toward the middle. I can directly assign a skill for additional practice just to those students. And so this gets at the ability to really personalize an experience in a relatively easy way from a teacher perspective, that aligns with whatever the core instruction is that day.
Well, and this is amazing. I guess my point was just basically to punch home the whole notion about formative assessment, right? And how all the talk we've had over the years about formative assessment, and we really typically put that in the context of standardized tests. And I know there's a bit of standardization here, but it never aligns with real-time instruction. And what you're talking about here is real-time instruction with real-time formative assessment that can then feed back into real-time instruction if you're able to assign kids more practice and the ability to spend more time with the concept. That's pretty powerful.
Yeah, and just the ability when you assign a skill to if you had time carved out during the day, you could do that. It could be something that a student could work on as a homework assignment as well. So it gives a lot of flexibility. Drilling down just one more step is a sample of, I can now select an individual student, and then the information even comes into more clarity specifically for that student. And so when you think about starting at the highest level of skills, I can then look at a skill with all my students, and then I can actually work towards viewing an individual student as well. So that captures the heart of the Khan Academy platform, or a high level anyway. I'm going to have my contact information at the end, and if a school administrator wants to reach out, we can certainly talk more in depth, specifically, about how they might use the resource. But also, we love stealing ideas. We work with schools across the country, and there's so many great minds and so many creative ways that schools use the resource. So I'd be glad to share that information. Couldn't leave today's conversation without talking, and this is the season, right?
Right. That's right.
A bit about SAT. And so last paper pencils being delivered. we had previously, well, I shouldn't say previously, we talk about our partnership with college, where we talk about that as official SAT practice. It's moving to official digital SAT prep. Just wanted to point a couple things out here about the resource. And we hosted a webinar a couple weeks ago, and maybe some administrators across the state attended that. But we are still the official partner with College Board. Same mastery, when we talk official digital SAT prep, it's the same mastery course content. So all that power we were just talking about, the schools will be able to utilize specific to the digital SAT prep. There's going to be a ton of data on student performance and specific SAT skills. And the way it's going to be organized, there'll be 37 skills in math. And then for the reading and writing course, it'll be organized into 11 skills. And that's going to cover that full range of questions on the exam. Now, this is a bit of a difference. The full length practice test that schools were able to go to the Khan Academy platform and have students take, those are going to be hosted on College Board site. So I know they're talking a lot about it. I actually had a chance to listen to my friend and former colleague Maureen a couple sessions ago. I know she wasn't talking about this, but I'm sure College Board is going to be talking a lot about this as well. But that's just at a very high level, and I'd be glad again to talk to schools a little bit more about official digital SAT. But I want to be sensitive to the fact that you've got a delivery coming up, and that story is going to unfold in the coming year. So just wanted to close briefly with everything I talked about from the mission, start of our overarching mission, to everything I just showed, teachers can go in and access right now. So the way I like to talk about that is an individual teacher can go to khanacademy.org, build a class, have students come in, they can look at and review student data and practice. One of the things we've started to do is starting partnerships with districts. That's primarily the work that I do. And so when schools call, we oftentimes will have the school is reaching out to say, we love Khan Academy, or we think that's a powerful resource. And we have some individual teachers using the resource, but we would like to approach this resource a little bit more strategically. So what we do in a district partnership, and this is that same screen I had showed before, of all the mastery enabled courses, a school district would approach us and say, Jason, we would like a closer partnership. And we talk about what issue they're trying to solve, or what they're trying to accomplish. And then a district says, we want to really focus on these courses. And so that school has access to all of these courses, and they tell us, because we will roster students for them. And I think that's on the next slide. But a school might say, we really want to focus on official digital SAT prep. We also want to focus on Algebra 1 and the getting ready for grade level course, just one example. And so that what we do is we roster students into those courses, so a teacher doesn't have to do that individually. And then what we provide in a partnership, we provide professional development. We auto roster through either Clever or ClassLink. And then we provide the school and district level data reporting. So right now, teacher goes in, they can use the platform, excuse me, they can use the platform, and the data rests with them. So if a district wants to have that data and information rise up to either the school or district level, that's what we provide to the district. The one thing that I'm most proud of when we in the partnership is we have an incredibly strong professional learning team. And while it's small, it's incredibly mighty. And what we do is we do not approach a school district and say, off the shelf, here's what we do. We actually problem solve. We have a conversation, and then we shape the professional learning experience based on what they're trying to accomplish. And just having, again, been a high school administrator, worked with a lot of school districts, been a part of a lot of other resources, or engaged a lot of other resources, this is one area that I think sets us apart from other partners, is that we're really serious about that. We want to meet you where you're at and what you're trying to accomplish, and then we shape the experience around that. And then this is a screenshot of what the district would see. Very similar to what I had shown before, but when you think about moving from a teacher view to a district view, this is where, if it's a multi-high school district or multi-middle school or multi-school district that is partnering, you can filter by school, you can filter by grade, you can filter by course. So any course that we roster for, if you want to filter to look specifically at that, you can do that. You can even filter by teacher. And you can see below that it begins to break down by skill level. And so a lot of good information from a district standpoint, especially if we're creating the professional learning experience for a very specific purpose. And so if a district is looking at improving, I continue to use Algebra 1 because I talk about that most with schools, but Algebra 1 is an example. We can really get some good information back to schools about the use of the platform. For those that love, the research behind the work that's done, we have over 50 studies. If you Google Khan Academy research, our page will come up, and there's a lot of reading that you can do there and a lot of research about practice. When we partner with schools, we ask for a minimum of 30-minute commitment a week. That's the minimum where we see some impact. And so
when you say 30 minutes, you mean commitment with kids actually engaged with the platform, is it correct?
Engaged with the platform in a strategic way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we help shape. And so what we're really careful on, and when we talk to schools, is we don't want this to be a standalone, right? Like, I know there are instances where you could say Khan Academy is a great platform, go work on X, but when we partner, we really try to talk about where's the content expert in this part of the story? How can they be a benefit to the students? How can you engage in, that healthy back and forth conversation around the resource? But and here's my contact information. Again, I work with all Midwest states. And so if somebody wanted to reach out, I'd be glad to talk even in more depth specifically about the resource.
Well, let me just say one other thing here too, Jason, that I appreciated during, some of our conversations, and we've had a few now up to this point, but, your expression to me about really wanting to make sure that what you're doing is a good fit for the districts, right? And I think you guys is working with the districts as part of that exploratory process, have even at times been with districts like, this may not be necessarily the right fit for you, and even willing to say that out loud, to even let them off the hook if necessary, because you want to make sure that everybody's going to be successful if they're going to put their time and resources into it.
Yeah, I try to be brutally honest. If I'm having a conversation with the district, and if somebody approaches and said, we're interested in a partnership, we'd love to partner. But if it's a situation where we've never even explored the platform, sometimes I'll say, maybe the good first step is find some teachers and have them play around on the platform, because what that does, it creates a much richer conversation with us. And we know that implementing anything in school is difficult. I had referenced earlier, there's a ton of resources available, a lot of things flying into schools or potentially flying into schools. And so we want the partnership to be beneficial to the school. And we want to make sure that the teacher usage and the actual implementation is successful, because I've personally been a part of some implementations as a school administrator that didn't go well. And so we ask, the school to at least explore a bit. But we also, another big piece of this that really is important for today's conversation is, I'm really clear, and I'll say, we need school leadership.
Yeah,
right. We need school leadership to be on board, to be clear with what we're trying to do, because in a partnership, we'll circle back throughout the school year to review the data with the school district. And what we want is the school leadership to come into that conversation, having reviewed, having at least an understanding of what the student performance is like, because again, it just makes for a much more rich conversation and a much more strategic conversation about next steps.
Well, you've made that data and having those conversations pretty accessible there by some of those shots that you shared to, drill down to the kid level, cohort, child, the whole thing makes that very user friendly, right? Versus when I get test data results back on a CD that I never had time hardly to ever put in the computer and then have to transport that to my own Excel spreadsheets and everything else. What you're trying to do there is much better than that. That's for sure.
Yeah. And when I said, use the term easy at the beginning, and I'm very careful to use that term.
Yeah.
So, but when I use that term easy, when I talk about navigating the platform, it's intuitive. If a teacher explores that part of it's easy, in terms of building a course and really engaging with the resource. And I think that that's really important, because any roadblock that pops up from a teacher perspective, it creates a much greater challenge to implement anything. And so we try to make that as easy as possible so that teachers can get at the heart of what we're trying to do in terms of a supplemental resource to support them.
That's terrific. Well, Jason Feig, thanks for spending a little time with me for this IPA talk. Sure grateful for it.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity.
You know, and not only do we share the first name, we also share last names that nobody can pronounce the first few times that they try to say it, right?
Yes, that is absolutely true.
I know we were joking about it earlier, but always can tell when those telemarketers are calling. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. But thank you. Again, my name is Jason Leahy, Executive Director of the Illinois Principals Association. Thanks for joining in for this IPA talk. As always, if there's anything IPA can do for you, be sure to check us out on the web at www.ilprincipals.org. Take care.